for analysis, I'd like to bring in France 24's international affairs commentator, Doug Herbert. Doug, it's great to have you with us. I mean, I don't know what the right way of wording this is. It seems like a rather unenviable first international trip as a vice president for Kamala Harris.
Exactly, Sunam. And many would say a thankless task, right? If you had to choose sort of two issues that are among the most intractable, and yet at the same time most important in U.S. politics right now, it's probably the immigration issue, which has festered for really decades now, unresolved, as well as voting rights. That's another giant dossier that has been sort of heaped into Kamala Harris's inbox. Now, you could say it's a blessing in disguise, because if she has some success in tackling these issues, it would help her perhaps ambitions later on to become president, because a lot of people do see her as an heir in waiting perhaps to Biden among the Democrats. But for now, it's an extremely difficult set of issues, and especially immigration. Joe Biden basically asked her in March to take on the immigration issues. Now, you said there has been in recent months a record flow of these undocumented migrants from Central America across the border of the U.S. This has obviously been an issue that has been recurrent over decades. It didn't come about overnight. Kamala Harris, though, faces this sort of double whammy, because you could say she is trying to solve a very difficult and complex problem, which actually warrants a very complex debate on a lot of very complicated issues. But she's doing it in an environment, in a climate in America where everything is boiled down to sound bites and often very polarized and very sort of hard-hitting, if you will, types of rhetoric. Republicans have sort of laid into Harris's entire approach, saying she's going to Central America. She's missing at the border, is what some of the signs they've been holding up saying, implying that she hasn't yet visited the physical border. Now, obviously, we know Donald Trump, for him, the border was the be-all and end-all, and he politicized, you might say, weaponized the border between the U.S. and Mexico in ways that no president had previously. And it's that very, as his critics would see it, that very unjust, unlawful at times, and inhumane border policy that Donald Trump implemented that has led to this now different type of approach by the Biden administration, which inevitably is going to come under attack. Add to the fact that Kamala Harris is a woman of color with a lot of responsibility, and yeah, she's on the receiving end of a lot of misogyny and sexism and racism.
You've got a combination of that and what you referred to earlier as a thankless task. Does this mean, Doug, that Kamala Harris is not going to realistically be able to achieve anything tangible as a result of this trip?
No, it doesn't mean that at all. It does mean that she faces some really difficult issues that she's going to be discussing with the Guatemalan president. As you were saying, what is root causes? You said in your introduction she wants to go after the root causes. The broad idea here is to seek to deter migrants from making their way from Central America, notably El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, through Mexico, ultimately across the U.S. border. How? By making their lives more tolerable in the places they come from. And a lot of the places they come from, the reality of life is often impoverishment, it's often corruption, it's often gang violence, it's often malnutrition, it's often, you could just keep laying on the issues, and lack of economic opportunity, of course. Now, Guatemala's leader is going to tell her that our country should not be lumped together with El Salvador and Honduras. We're not as bad, we don't have the same level of gang violence and all of that. But they do have, in a sense, that same lack of opportunity, which does ultimately drive people up to the north. And the problem is the approach by the U.S. has been pouring hundreds of millions of dollars, sometimes billions of dollars over the last decade into this region. But a lot of that money ends up being siphoned and sucked up by the U.S. agencies who are supposed to distribute it, going to exorbitant salaries for their workers. And it doesn't end up on the ground and actually making an impact, or at least not seen as making an impact among the people, the poorest people and the farmers who need it most. These are all things that need to be ironed out. It's complicated, and that's where it all gets. The crux of the matter is she's not going to do this overnight, but she does have a zeal for the matter, and she wants to tackle it.